They laughed when she spilled coffee on the colonel's boots. For 8 years, Rachel Elridge was nothing more than the janitor's daughter. Silent, overlooked, stepped on like the scuff marks she scrubbed off hangar floors. Nobody knew the truth, that she had once flown faster than sound, trained in secret beneath their noses, and passed elite simulations most cadets failed. But when every qualified pilot backed out of a mission that could not fail, the brass turned in desperation to the one person they had ignored the longest. They shoved her into the cockpit like a last resort. What happened next didn't just change the mission. It silenced the base and exposed the secret she was never supposed to reveal. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring you more powerful, true-to-life stories that stay with you long after the credits roll. Now let's begin. Rachel Elridge was only 19 when she first touched the flight controls of the simulator buried beneath Hangar 7. She hadn't meant to find it. It was nearly midnight and she was sweeping the lower maintenance wing when she noticed a flickering light through a half-open door. The simulator was ancient. The oxygen mask still dangled from its hook, and dust coated every surface. It had been years since anyone had trained there. Yet something inside Rachel stirred. She closed the door behind her, sat in the cracked leather seat, and wrapped her hands around the control stick like it was destiny. And then she started flying. No one saw her. No one even knew she was missing. Her mother, Susan Elridge, had been a janitor at Graham Air Base for over 15 years. Rachel practically grew up there. She learned to walk beside jet fuel tanks and took her first steps across oil-streaked hangar floors. She memorized aircraft call signs before she could spell her own name. Her father had died in a lumber mill accident in Kentucky when she was 5, and from that day on, the Air Force Base became her surrogate parent. By 16, Rachel had devoured every old training manual she could find, many tossed into bins or left coffee-stained and forgotten in break rooms. She copied pages on the base library's old printer, read them late into the night while her mother iced her swollen knees, and studied them like scripture. Her favorite was a worn-down flight training guide, page 217, marked by a torn corner, the one about emergency dive maneuvers. She had memorized it like a prayer. No one ever knew what she was doing. The airmen ignored her. The officers didn't speak to her. She didn't need their approval. She trained in silence. She practiced cockpit drills using discarded uniforms, mimicked control movement with a toothbrush, and whispered flight commands in the dark. When the simulator finally broke, she convinced Roger Collins, a gruff mechanic with a soft spot for her mother, to help fix it. He never asked questions. She didn't just fly simulations, she mastered them. She recreated mock tests from overheard lessons and scored higher than most cadets ever did. She even timed herself against their real-time exercises, listening through thin metal walls as they struggled to maneuvers she could execute blindfolded. But nobody noticed. And that was exactly how she wanted it. Because in a world where she had no permission to belong, invisibility was her only armor. Every day, Rachel pushed her mop down the same corridors where Air Force legends once walked. She emptied trash bins outside mission briefing rooms, pretending she didn't understand every word behind those walls. When officers tossed their cups near her boots, she didn't flinch. She never spoke unless spoken to. But in her mind, she was always flying. And on quiet nights, when no one was watching, she'd stand alone on the tarmac and look up at the sky, whispering pre-flight checklists under her breath until they fused with her pulse. One evening, the sky above Guillaume Air Base burned with streaks of orange and copper as the sun dipped low. Rachel was finishing her shift when the first alarm blared. The sound was different, urgent, sharp, and fast. Within seconds, chaos engulfed the base. Officers shouted into radios. Crewmen ran. Commanders burst out of buildings. Rachel froze, mop in hand, as a voice echoed from the loudspeakers. Unidentified aircraft breach detected. All available pilots report to Hangar 1 immediately. Repeat, this is not a drill. She ducked into the shadows behind a stack of oil drums as pilots sprinted past her. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. She knew that tone in the commander's voice. It wasn't panic. It was fear. Then she saw him. General Vaughn, emerging from the operations center, face pale and jaw tight. Two lieutenants flanked him, whispering fast. She couldn't hear every word, but one sentence cut through the wind like a blade. "We don't have anyone left with the reflexes for that altitude. Every pilot failed the sim." Rachel's heart seized. She knew exactly what simulation they were talking about. The high-altitude dive interception, so dangerous it had been removed from training protocols after 2 accidents. She had flown it hundreds of times. She had never failed. Then something shifted. A group of officers turned toward the maintenance corridor. Rachel held her breath and ducked lower, her heart pounding in her throat. She didn't belong here. She wasn't supposed to be part of this world. But her instincts screamed otherwise. And then she heard it. Her name. "Is that Elridge's girl?" one voice asked. "The janitor's daughter? Why is she near the command line?" Before she could retreat, a firm hand landed on her shoulder. She spun around. It was Major Collins, the same man who had helped her fix the simulator years ago. He stared at her, searching her eyes. "You know that maneuver, don't you?" he asked. Rachel couldn't answer. She didn't need to. Collins turned and shouted to a nearby officer, "Bring her now." Everything changed in that instant. 2 officers flanked her, ushering her across the tarmac. Her boots, still damp from mop water, squeaked with every step. Everyone turned to look. Some snickered, some whispered. Words like janitor and "what is she doing here?" floated behind her like smoke. But no one stopped her. The air was too thick with desperation. And then the hangar doors opened. The jet stood ready, its twin engines roaring like caged beasts, steam rising from the fuselage, a beast waiting for its rider. Rachel stepped forward, her fingers already flexing with muscle memory. She didn't need an introduction. She didn't need a salute. All she needed was a sky, and one chance to prove she had always belonged in it. Around the roaring jet, high-ranking officers moved like bees scattered from their hive. Orders were shouted, radios hissed, tension crackled through the air. In the center stood General Vaughn, his face chiseled with disbelief and frustration. When his eyes landed on Rachel, escorted by 2 officers in a jumpsuit far too big for her, his brow furrowed. "You brought the janitor's daughter?" he barked. An officer beside her stood firm. "She knows the sim, sir. Ask Collins." Vaughn turned to Major Collins, skeptical. "Are you serious?" Collins didn't blink. "Sir, she's flown that maneuver more than anyone else here. She's never failed. She's not enlisted, but no one else has her reflexes." For a long second, Vaughn studied Rachel like she was a puzzle no one had solved. Then his voice dropped into something colder, sharper. "What do you know about Operation Throttleback?" Rachel met his eyes, unwavering. "High-altitude breach, triple-axis drop, double spin restabilization. You lose hydraulic control at 56,000 feet. You only get one chance." The words left her lips like a checklist she'd recited 1,000 times. A stunned silence followed. Somewhere, a wrench clattered to the floor. Vaughn's jaw twitched. He turned toward the jet and lifted his hand. "Suit her up." Everything moved fast after that. Rachel was rushed to the locker room where a flight suit, several sizes too big, was shoved into her arms. She yanked it on, zipped it up, and strapped on the helmet. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of the moment. 8 years of hiding, of silence and grease and invisibility were over. When she stepped out of the locker room, the entire base had gathered to watch. Tense. Officers lined the walls. Pilots stood shoulder to shoulder. No one said a word as Rachel walked across the tarmac, her boots still damp from mop water squeaking with every step. Stares pierced through her like bullets, but she walked steady, focused. Every procedure, every protocol she had ever memorized clicked into place like gears in motion. She reached the ladder, climbed up, and for the first time in her life, no simulation, no imagination, sat in a real cockpit. Her hands found the throttle. Her breath slowed. The noise of the world dimmed. Inside that jet, Rachel Elridge was no longer the janitor's daughter. Her fingers danced over the controls with practiced grace. Pre-flight checks completed with robotic precision. The engines howled like caged beasts as the ground crew cleared out. Then a voice crackled through her headset. "Elridge, confirm readiness." She clicked her mic. "Ready for takeoff?" Every eye on base locked onto that jet. The air went still. Rachel pushed the throttle. The jet screamed down the runway like a launched missile. The roar drowned every laugh, every insult, every time she had been dismissed. Inside the cockpit, Rachel was weightless. Her senses fused with the machine. Altitude climbed fast. The sky peeled open above her like a curtain drawn back for a performance only she could give. From the tower, even the most seasoned pilots gawked. No one had ever seen maneuvers that clean, that sharp. Then came the alert. "Elridge, we have breach confirmation. Unidentified aircraft entering restricted airspace. High velocity. Intercept required. Use caution. Possible hostile." Rachel responded without hesitation. "Copy, engaging." She banked hard, pulling a G-force curve that would have blacked out most rookies. Her body held firm. Below her, the sun was dying behind the mountains, painting the world in streaks of fire and blood. But Rachel's eyes stayed fixed on the target. A blip appeared on her radar. Fast, erratic, dodging like a needle in a hurricane. But she'd seen this move before, in the simulator, over and over again. She anticipated its path like it was a dance partner. No fear, no doubt, just action. The breach aircraft zigzagged violently, trying to shake her. She followed with perfect form. Alarms screamed in her cockpit, warning of structural strain. She didn't flinch. Back on base, silence gripped the tower. Susan Elridge had arrived, trembling behind the glass, her work rag still in hand. Her eyes, wide with disbelief, followed the streak of her daughter's jet tearing through the sky. The same girl who had once carried trash bags now carried the nation's defense. Rachel hit 48,000 feet. The enemy plane dove suddenly. She matched the angle. Her own jet spiraled downward in a controlled vertical plummet. At this altitude and speed, one error meant death. Warnings blared. The G-forces squeezed her lungs. But Rachel's hands were still. She redistributed thrust, flipped stabilizers manually, countered the dive with millisecond precision. In the tower, someone whispered, "No one's supposed to be able to do that." At 12,000 feet, the breach aircraft shot upward. Rachel followed. They climbed together, slicing through cloud layers. Then, like she had done 100 times before in silence, she flipped the jet in a counterloop, locked onto the tail, and confirmed the target. "Target neutralized. Returning to base." Her voice was calm, almost soft. Uriam Air Base exploded with noise. Cheers, disbelief, sobs. Officers ran outside. Pilots clapped. Technicians dropped tools in shock. Rachel landed smooth as silk. Her jet rolled to a stop. The hatch opened. For a second, no one moved. Then she climbed down. The crowd stood frozen. Rachel's boots hit the tarmac. She looked around and saw faces that once ignored her now staring in awe. General Vaughn approached, his steps deliberate. He stopped inches from her and asked quietly, "You were never just a janitor's daughter, were you?" Rachel wiped the sweat from her brow. "Sir?" The silence was deafening. Then it cracked. A staff sergeant stepped forward. "Ma'am, do you need water?" Rachel didn't smile, not quite. Instead, she looked past him. Her mother stood nearby, still in her faded uniform, the same rag now clutched at her side like a lifeline. Rachel and Susan's eyes met, and in that look, years of unspoken struggle melted away. Susan walked forward slowly, every step an emotional tremor. When she reached her daughter, she dropped the rag and pulled Rachel into a hug. "I never wanted you to carry my burden," she whispered. "I wanted more for you. But you made the sky yours anyway. General Vaughn turned to the stunned crowd. Listen up. This woman just executed the most dangerous high-altitude interception maneuver in our entire database. She was not supposed to survive that. She was not even authorized to fly. But she did it, and you all watched it happen. He turned back to Rachel. Why hide this? Why work as a janitor when you could have been flying? Rachel glanced around at the sea of stunned faces. Because no one asked, she said softly. They looked at my mother's job and assumed mine would be the same. When I tried to tell them, they laughed. So I stopped trying. But I never stopped training. Someone asked quietly, "Who trained you?" Rachel turned toward the tower. Major Collins. He believed in me. He let me use the simulators at night. He broke rules. He gave me my shot when no one else would. Collins, eyes glassy, gave a quiet nod. Susan stepped forward again, this time standing beside her daughter with pride. The general's voice rang out once more. Effective immediately. Rachel Elridge is no longer janitorial staff. She is granted full pilot status, with rank, clearance, and a place on our elite rapid response squadron. The base erupted. Salutes snapped into the air. Mechanics cheered. Pilots clapped. Rachel didn't say a word. She raised her hand and returned the salute. That was enough. Because in that moment, she had spoken with steel, precision, and fire.